Hello, 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 everybody. I have a special guest here, Shannon. How you doing today, Shannon?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me, DOA.
Well, thank you for coming on an interview after I labeled you a possible bad actor.
You're welcome. You've since made amends.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to make amends and to tell this what I think is a super important story, and I'm very nervous to just even do this interview. So I'm very gracious for the opportunity to do it. Could you tell everyone in the chat what how you kind of came into Scientology protesting and what
Sure.
your channel name is?
Oh yeah. So my channel, which hasn't been active in about a year, is Chicago Scientology Audit. I was the second person to protest in Chicago before the opening of the Ideal Org. The first person was Trashy V12. He's sort of long gone. He still streams, but he doesn't have anything to do with Scientology anymore and hasn't for quite some time. So, but we're still in touch. We talk occasionally. And so really the way I got involved was, I think, similar to a lot of streamers. I was first a fan of the YouTube channels that the second gens and third gens had. I watched Aaron Smith Levin. What else did I watch? Mainly Aaron, actually. I'm trying to think who else. It was whoever else he would introduce in his show. And
Okay.
so I watched Reese for a little while, but that didn't stick. Just there was nothing that interested me there. And, and then you came along. Anyway, so one day I saw that there was someone doing it in Chicago, and I kept having this like nagging feeling like, I'm retired. Why don't I go out and do it? But it was the middle of winter in Chicago. So I, said, well, when it gets warmer, I'll go out. And at that time, the the Scientology org was in Lakeview on the north side, far north side of Chicago. And it was relatively easy for me to get to. I took a couple trains to get there. And, I found out that there was somebody that was filming at the org, but not doing a lot of talking or protesting. He was protesting quietly with the camera. And back then, that was a big deal. It made them very uncomfortable. It kept them inside. It kept them from interacting with the community. And so what happened was I happened to be listening to him while I was doing other things, and the police came. And he's a young kid. He did great, but there were some things that could have been done better, for his sake. And so I had no idea how to get in touch with him. That he had no email on his channel. He was brand new, and so I went into his chat that day, and I said, I'm going to come down tomorrow and protest with you. I have a couple of things I want to talk to you about. And he said, okay. So the following day, I can't remember what happened. There was a breakdown on one of the L lines, and I was late, and he was leaving. He kept saying, I have to go. Okay, I have to go now. And I was like, please, please don't go. I'm coming. I'm on my way. And it was February 4th of 2024. That was my first day out. And
Oh, wow.
I did bring my camera because I wanted to make sure that I was filming him while he was filming them. And because the police had been there, I think twice by then. And he didn't completely understand his rights to protest. He didn't understand the extent to which he was protected by the First Amendment under Illinois law. And I wanted to, you know, I'm a member of NLG, the National Lawyers Guild, and have been for years. And they put out a little pamphlet for protesters explaining what they can and cannot do under the Constitution. And I had a couple copies of it. I've been an activist since I was 18 years old, probably younger than that. But the first time I got arrested for protesting was an anti-apartheid protest in Madison, Wisconsin, when I was 19. So it was like 1985. And,
wow.
And so, you know, I'm familiar with protesting and activism. And
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, so we finally met, you know, Trash and I, and I'm going to try to not say people's names, real names. And we just got along famously, and we stuck together from then on. We planned our protests mostly together, and after a while it was when he couldn't be there, I would be there, and vice versa. So someone was almost always there. And I was much different than he was. I was far more confrontational. You know, I walked into the org and asked if I could watch a movie, and you know, asked them why did they have a sign outside saying anyone could come in and watch a movie, and they wouldn't let me see it. And you know, we challenged. There are a lot of NOI members here. The Nation of Islam is huge in Chicago, as you know, and they at that time had already been recruited as auditors, and they were training. We saw them, we met them, I talked to them, I interviewed one, and it was to me, that was the most fascinating aspect of the Chicago Scientology scene. And because they were so open at the time to talk to us, we just got lucky. And there was some, you know, like Barbie doll that ran the org at the time, and she would come and drag these guys into the org and not, you know, try to prevent them from talking to us. And, you know, we would ask them. They were always trying to convince us why it was not a cult. And we would ask them, if she's got her hand on your arm and she's pulling you into the door, is this really not a cult? How can you convince me that it's not? And that's how I started.
And that was Nation of Islam guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for people who might not be familiar with that, Farrakhan is kind of the leader, and he's based in Chicago. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And do they have a separate temple or a church in the area where the org was?
No.
I'm not sure if you
not
know that.
In that area. No. They're on the south side. They sell their white bean pies, which are actually amazing.
Okay.
And but their biggest place of worship and offices are here. And, you know, I mean, this is their home base.
Yeah.
So, of course, Scientology took advantage of it. Farrakhan and Miscavige have some kind of a deal where Farrakhan now requires every new, you know, Nation of Islam is its own cult. And so they have, he has a policy that all their new recruits have to study Scientology, and the money, you know, money gets transferred between Farrakhan and Miscavige. And it's definitely worth Scientology's time and effort to train these guys, because they all have to pay for it. And some of the money gets kicked back to Farrakhan. And that's
interesting. I used to when I first got into kind of like anti-war and everything, I was actually listening to a lot of Farrakhan. Because Farrakhan, similar to some of the Scientology stuff, has some anti-government like kind
Yeah.
of overtones to him, and Farrakhan's a really very the white devil, but very, he's a very good speaker, and so I did watch for my first year or two of kind of being aware of what's going on in the world, and so I could see how they would kind of latch into the Scientology and stuff.
He's an
Um,
incredible speaker. And they emphasize a lot of clean living, no drugs. You know, they don't like psychiatry either.
I didn't
Um,
know that.
yeah,
Interesting.
they dress in uniforms like Scientology. They believe that they are, you know, one of their tasks is to clean up the Black communities and to be representatives of what Black people can be if they try. You know,
No, it sounds like a match made in hell
it is.
with, with Scientology,
Yeah.
and and, and so I think this is important because I didn't even know this. I was under the false impression that you were a paralegal, and you were a little offended by that statement.
I'm such a snot. I'm such an egotistical. Some things, you
well,
know, some things just take a long time to get rid of.
yeah, and you were a prosecutor in the Thunderdome, 33rd in Ashland,
20
correct?
in California.
In California. Yeah, I'm bad with numbers.
Yeah, that's okay.
I They have glass. Well, the courtroom I had been in, they got glass, plexiglass from the gallery to the at the bar, which is like the fence separating the gallery from the actual court. It
Yes.
was a glass Thunderdome. It was
Yeah.
such a weird feeling. And so you were there for as uh, the state's attorney's office for how long were you there for?
6 years.
6 years, and
Hmm.
then you worked for some other law firms, and then eventually started up your own law firm. Is that correct?
Pretty much. I mean, I went to work as okay. So to I went to 26 in California because I wanted to learn how to try cases. I always wanted to litigate. I was like one of those insane lawyers that wanted to spend all my time in courtrooms, you know, yelling at juries and cross-examining people. And that was the best place to get that kind of knowledge because it's what you did from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day, 5 days a week, and it was one case after another. And felony trials is especially in the office I was in. We had so back then the offices each office had a first, second, and third chair, and that's just all determined by experience. And
Mm.
uh, let's see. So, you know, right away at 26 in Cal, you were trying murder cases and capital murder cases. So it's trial by fire there. I remember the first time I ever tried a case, the second chair, because, you know, I was new, I was the third chair. And the second chair, Marianne Malikatic was her name. Laura Lambert was my first chair, and she is an amazing and very well-known prosecutor in Chicago, very successful. And Marianne handed me a file and said, as we were walking into the courtroom, and said, "You're going to try this case." I had no idea. I'd never seen the client. Had no idea what the case was about. You know, right away flipped open the file, try to figure it out, because you don't know when you go in necessarily when your case is going to be called. It could be first, you know.
Yep.
And anyway, to make a long story short, she said to me, I must have been the look on my face, or maybe all the color drained out of my face. But she said, well, if you're going to faint, I won't make you do it. I said, no, I can do it.
and and so do you feel like you were an advocate for like victims as a prosecutor? Because I've always been on the other side, so I've
Yeah.
always felt attacked by prosecutors.
Yes.
But did you feel like an advocate for people of victims of murder and whatnot?
I did, but I was rare, because I was naive. So I would have to say that I did at first, but there's a saying in the prosecutor's office that is, today's witnesses are tomorrow's defendants. And so, you're dealing with people that are all stuck in the same community, impoverished, poorly educated, just riddled with violence and drugs, in these communities. And they have so few options that they all end up in a criminal lifestyle for the most part. And there were a few witnesses that I got very close to, victims that I got very close to. And anyway, I won't bother you with those stories today. Maybe sometime.
I from what I've gathered about you, you do seem to be an advocate for victims still. Just protesting Scientology, but even going into more what we're going to get into here a little later. When you did have your own law firm, what were you specializing in, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, it was kind of an odd career trajectory. So I started off as in-house counsel with the surplus lines insurance company doing professional liability defense. So all that means is I was defending hard to defend professionals who had bad track records. And they had to have surplus lines, which means they are outside the normal marketplace, much more expensive, and you need much more skilled underwriters and claims attorneys and so on to handle the cases. And so I went in-house first, and it was a great job, and I often think now I should have stayed there for my whole career, because it was cushy and it was 9 to 5, and but in my soul, I just needed to try cases. I don't know why, but I did, and I couldn't try cases there. I managed litigation, so
interesting.
They didn't have.
You felt that you were able to be a better advocate by going to trial?
It just fits my personality.
Fair enough.
I like the adrenaline. I like not knowing from day to day what you're going to be doing. I like emergency motions that you get 5 minutes before 5 o'clock at the end of the day for 9 o'clock the following morning. And you have to pick up witnesses and write affidavits and all that good stuff. I don't know why. I love that panic. I love that. There's just a lot of adrenaline involved, and I love.
Interesting.
And so, well, to answer your question about my specialty, though, what happened was, from there, I got so freaking bored with that job that I ended up going to a very it was a medium-sized but a very well-respected niche litigation firm. And I stayed there until I started my own firm, and my specialty, because this was theirs, became commercial litigation. So that's what I did. I fought when partners split up and fight in business, when shareholders sue, CEOs, when boards of directors sue the corporation. That's the kind of stuff I was doing. And it was great. I loved it. It was fun.
And that was like, you were easily able to recognize where Trashy wasn't fully aware of a lot of his rights, was from your previous protesting and from your career.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've always been interested in activism, but on the ground activism. Again, it's got to be that, the adrenaline rush. But I got arrested in 1985. My first year of college, I was at Madison, Wisconsin. And at that time, the state of Wisconsin had their teachers' pensions invested in a apartheid supporting corporation, and I think it was Shell. I'm pretty sure it was Shell Corporation. And so the legislature, the state legislature, was voting on whether or not to divest the teachers' pensions. So a big group of my friends and other people, it was a huge group, hundreds of people, went to the Capitol building and camped out there for a week. And we ate there and we slept there on those hard marble floors. And when the people came to work in the morning, they had to step over us. And the local farmers in the area brought us food and to sustain us, because the public was against apartheid. And it was getting to the point, like it was reaching, it was reaching a point where politicians were finally feeling free to take a stand against it. And really the public had become, with Biko and all that stuff, had been educated about apartheid and turned against it. And so we knew we had a good chance of winning the vote, and we did. Ultimately, we won the vote after that week, and it was fun. It was just a huge party. And then we marched to the bank the bank that Shell banked with, I guess. I don't know, and we made a human chain around it. And that's when we got dragged by clothes, hair, feet, and arrested. We all got arrested that day. And I was so proud,
It's a rite of passage, I think, for an activist, is to get arrested.
Yeah.
It's like you get your first stripe or your wing. And so besides like boots on the ground, what else do you think that just boots on the ground is what it takes to be an activist? Or are there more things that are besides boots on the ground? Like how would you define good activism?
I think good activism takes a heart for it, a real belief that you can change something, that one person can make a difference, and that it can change the way, in the direction you want it to change in. But effective activism takes a whole group effort, and it takes people working in all kinds of different areas. You need lawyers. You absolutely need lawyers. You need people who are victims, like in this case in Scientology. You need people who can attest to what exactly goes on there. And those personal, it's like at church, those personal stories really move people. So you need that. You need people who have done a lot of organization in activism and protesting, people that can organize the boots on the ground. And you need creative types that can think of things that will catch the public's attention, and make some of these props that we use that work. They just work. The props are annoying to me. I hate carrying them. I hate signs, but they work. They're effective. And, you know, you need people, who have been personally affected by this issue. And you need some people that haven't been personally affected, but are empathetic with those who were. I mean, I've never been, and I don't think you've been either, touched in my personal life by Scientology.
No, besides some of the stuff with this safe pointing, or them reaching out to the prosecutor in West Virginia and everything. But yeah, I haven't really had any personal harm or abuse done to me in my past.
I don't know anybody that was in Scientology. I know nothing about Scientology. I know everything now. I was talking to a friend yesterday. We went out to lunch for my birthday, and it was like, I think I could teach a class, like a rudimentary class on Scientology now, you know? Because he was asking
Scientology 101.
Yeah, right. The very beginning class. He was asking me questions, and I'm answering him in this weird language. He's like, "What's that? And what's that? And what's that?"
It's taken me a year, and I finally feel a lot more comfortable. It's been a long year, even talking with Laura and trying to understand. There's so much to it, and there's so much that I need to learn. And I feel like the more I learn, the better advocate I could be for those in it, specifically those in it, because I could speak some of their language. I know kind of what some of their thoughts are, and I could also use those thoughts against them, or Ron Hubbard's teachings against them, call out some of the hypocrisy of it.
Mm-hmm. And there's plenty of that.
There's tons of that.
Yeah.
And so you were with Trashy for a while, and then Trashy ended up taking off.
Well, no.
Did he kind of leave it? Did he leave at the same time as you?
No. What happened was, so I started February 4th, and we started hearing rumblings. There was nothing obvious. Nothing was announced. Nothing was posted. Nothing was being moved. But the neighbors were telling us things, and we just heard rumblings that there was an Ideal Org opening, that they were going to leave Lakeview and go to Printers Row, which is on the near south side. It's in the South Loop in Chicago. And they were going to open their new building that they had owned for 20 years. And they had announced at least three times prior to that they were moving in there, and never did. And so they hadn't announced it, but there were rumblings that there were people coming that had been specially trained to man the Ideal Org and all that bullshit. And so we started splitting our time between Lakeview and Printers Row, and we, just to see if there was anything going on. And then there were things going on. There was like, how the buildings are so close to each other, so there's no room to really do anything outside. But in the back alley, we would find them like delivering things. And if we catch them with the door open, and we could see that they were building shelves and putting things together, and they were moving. So I had been told they would move February 23rd, and nobody believed me. And I was talking, and I'm trying to tell everyone, and like get people to come and help us. And nobody was doing anything. I couldn't get Aaron to listen. I couldn't get any of the, bigger streamers, Natalie, anybody to listen and help me get people there to protest Scientology. It was me and Trash, and that's it. It was us two, and in the opening of an Ideal Org. So it was like, and I begged and pleaded and took, video inside windows, and, crept around in the alleys and all the nasty stuff, Trash dug through the garbage cans, the dumpsters outside, and we found announcements, and finally, about 2 days before the closings that preceded the opening, it was confirmed by Scientology that they would open March 3rd. So Aaron finally got me the day before on his show and interviewed me about Chicago, about what was going on here and what we needed.
Do you feel that the community was supportive before that, or
No.
how do you feel the community was, the anti-Scientology community before that?
They ignored us. Like we used to laugh, all of us, before the people that weren't so fun and cool came along. We would laugh about call ourselves, the poor stepchildren, because nobody would listen to us. Nobody would announce anything that we were doing, announce anything that Scientology was up to. We had the Nation of Islam, which in itself is a huge deal. It's a huge pool of labor for Scientology to keep them going in the event that they lose their tax exemption, that they lose the cash influx that they have. It's a huge pool of free labor. And, nobody was interested in any of it. Then all of a sudden, Aaron calls me and says, can you come on and talk to me about Chicago this afternoon? And I was like, this is after, I can't even tell you how many emails I sent these people. And I was like, yes. And so he had me on and he's all smiles and we're so grateful for what you're doing. And, what can we do to help? And, the day before the opening, right? Yeah. So that was my first experience with Aaron Smith Levin. Yeah. That was February 28th. And the opening was on the 3rd. So it was 2 days before the opening. And 1 day before the street closures.
And then so you had the opening. It was I've watched some of it. It was kind of crazy. They assaulted an old man. And there was a bunch of people that did come out to Danny and Leah. Selfless Self was there. Dodge was there.
Yeah.
And then and was that nice seeing some fresh faces there, or?
That was great.
It was great.
Grateful. I was so grateful. And then, Selfless and Dodge were wonderful. They would not take their eyes off me. Because they were after me, because I had been around and I was aggressive with them. And not aggressive, but like confrontational, like explain to me why, and then they never could explain anything. And they don't like that. So, sorry, the dog's got a ball that squeaks.
Oh, I thought you had a bird back there.
No, ow, you can't have this. Sorry, buddy. Not right now, okay? Go get your raccoon. Yeah, he loves that ball. He wants to know what's going on up here. So
all sorts of fun. Come on.
We went to a couple people, a friend of mine, and another person, and I stayed at a bed and breakfast, Airbnb for the opening because we wanted to be able to be there at all hours. We wanted to catch them doing all the things they were doing, which was using child labor to put together stages and scaffolding, violating the permits that they had for the street closures, working much later than the permits allowed and much earlier than the permits allowed. And they were spread out all over the place. They had big trucks that would just idle all day long. In a place where the street was not closed for them. And this is on Clark Street, which is a thoroughfare in
Oh
Chicago.
yeah, that's a major road.
And I mean, it's got a lot of traffic anyway, but I mean, they just completely fucked up the traffic in the loop for 4 days, I think, total. Yeah. And all in violation of the permit. And I had the permit, and I thought, I'm going to document all this stuff because I really thought it would matter. I thought,
Yeah,
the city
I
is
think
not
it will
going to
matter.
like. I really
I
did
think
believe.
I think that someday. I think someday it will matter. Um, Maybe not anytime soon, but I believe the story will be told. I hope so because it feels like this great helplessness when you have all this set of rules that are established that everyone's supposed to follow, and then no one's following them. And the
Scientology
police were,
follows no rules. No
yeah,
rules. They do their
yeah,
own
and
thing. They do what they want when they want. I mean, that day, I can tell you, I had my phone slapped out of my hand probably 4 times. I had my hair pulled, my clothes pulled. I was kind of groped from the waist down. They hired Blue Star Security, which is a notoriously horrible, rough, and illegal security company that's manned by mostly active duty Chicago police officers. And they have to have a clean record um, and a FOID card. They have to, and they're all armed. They were all armed.
they're armed.
And they were just
Interesting.
beating the shit out of me. I was the only one there. And they had the whole block shut off. The permit required that they have a 10-foot, easement,
Easement, ingress and egress.
passageway, yes. So in case of emergency, and for the public, including protesters and the media, to stand and see the event. And Scientology had told the village that the city, one of the reasons they got the permit they got was because they said that it was a public event and that the public was going to be invited to it. But actually, what they did was they beat up the public all day. Or they completely closed off that block. Their ideal org is right next to a dormitory of
For the college.
arts college, and those kids were amazing. I got so close. I mean, I still am friends with some of them, and they protested with us. They were so mad that day. They were made to give their names and addresses to Scientology people that had set up desks inside their dormitories, and made them show their IDs and give all of their personal information to Scientology. And the college allowed this. And, there were a lot of people with disabilities that were trying to get through there that couldn't. And they were just furious, and the whole thing was a shit show. And if you want to see it, you can still see it on my channel, I think.
You still have those videos up?
For posterity.
Yeah. Well, it's important.
Yeah.
It's important. It's a record, and we might not be the people who shut it down. It might be years from now, but the information and the tactics, people could study that and possibly, I don't know how big of a beast it's going to be to slay Scientology, and if it's going to happen next year or in 5 years or even 10 years from now. But all this is being archived, and none of this has really ever been done on camera. It's so detailed, the abuse and how they're abusing it. So someone could learn from all this. So I think it's very important, especially the permitted events and everything.
Yes.
Because that is, and the misuse of the permits and the police helping with the misuse of the permits.
Yes,
All that together is very important for people to understand how
it is.
Scientology kind of gets away with everything.
It is. So I'm not going to talk too much more about the ideal or opening, but I just wanted to say that Selfless and Dodge were really great in protecting me because it was me they were all after. And, because what's more fun than beating up a 58-year-old, disabled woman, right? I mean, that's right
Sounds
up
fun.
Scientology's, yeah, it's right up Scientology's alley.
They
So,
love taking advantage of the elderly and the young.
yeah. When I got there, I was swarmed, literally. And there was a kid, like a student, standing with her back against the wall, watching the whole thing. And she goes, "Oh, it's you." And I was like, "What do you mean it's me?" She said, "Oh, they keep talking about a lady with purple hair on their little,
Yeah.
on their
Walkie
little."
talkies. You
Yeah.
made it when OSA starts security starts saying your name over the walkie talkie.
Well, they had,
But that's how.
they knew who I was. I've
Yeah.
never used my name. I've never told people where I live. I still have never done that. And they knew me when I got there. They knew. They called me by my full name. They asked me, what was it like to be arrested? How did I feel when I got arrested? I mean, they and Dodge. They knew Dodge and I. And then they knew
Interesting.
our names. They knew about our histories. Yeah. And they do that because they think it's intimidating, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's motivating, actually. It's the
It
opposite.
is.
It's the opposite. So after the org, when did you end up shutting down your channel then from that moment? Like, what were the series of events that led you to not be there anymore?
Well, I started out, once the Ideal Org was up and running, I was going at least 5 days a week to Printers Row and protesting and auditing, pushing the envelope to see how far I could go and still have my First Amendment rights protected. To teach the police some things that they obviously didn't know, and to teach Scientology that they were not in charge. And so I was so angry about how they treated me. I mean, and the old man, that just was unlucky enough to be autistic and follow me, through the barriers, and into the cage to fight with the Scientologists, and he got his ass beat by all of those, big brave cops, off-duty cops, and and I was lucky enough to get it on camera, and that's shameful. That's the most shameful thing I have seen with my own eyes. That's the most shameful thing I've seen Scientology do. And I've seen them be absolute weirdos. I mean, they had a meeting once where the employees of Dream Exchange, which is a Scientology front group, just to use shorthand, the CEO and his son, the CEO of Dream Exchange, his name is Joe Cicala, and his son, Joe Jr., is the director of the Ideal Org. He's the head honcho there. And there's just a lot of money going back and forth between these two entities. And I was doing a lot of research on it and doing a lot of shows on it, a lot of YouTube shows. Nobody paid any attention to it, but it's still going on. And but I
Are those videos still up on your channel?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
The company is called Dream Exchange, and I had insiders, I had employees and ex-employees of Dream Exchange that were, by the way, you said nothing has happened. It just kills me, right? You said nothing's happened. So, we've been given all this money, and, we don't rescue people from Scientology. We got somebody out. I personally went with her mother and got her out of the building across the street from the org and rescued her.
I didn't hear about that.
Nobody knows anything about Chicago.
No, it's been neglected.
All the stuff that we did, that we were totally successful with, nobody gave a rat's ass about it. And it was funny because Feral Cheryl made a comment on ASL's page once that said, "Oh, Shannon's just pissed off that nobody ever picked up her Dream Exchange story. That's why she doesn't like Aaron."
I just like her.
And I was like, "Honey, come to Chicago and say that." So yeah, I mean, but it's true. There were many things that happened that were successful. All of that stuff from Dream Exchange was handed over to authorities that are investigating it right now, and they're up a creek, and we did that.
Interesting. I gotta eat my words, I guess, here, huh?
Yeah, because, well, I mean, it made me laugh because nobody ever knew what we were doing. Nobody ever cared. Yeah. We could never get Natalie to do anything about us at first.
And why do you think that? Why do you think that was the case?
I always thought that there were cool kids and not cool kids. I'm the one that came up with that, by the way, that analogy. The cool kids were the second gens, and they were the ones that wanted to own the viewership. They wanted to, own the people that were interested enough to donate money and spend their time watching and worrying about people in Scientology. They claimed that audience for themselves. They didn't want any interlopers coming in and taking any of, part of their money. For them, it was about fame and money, YouTube fame and money, which is a joke. It's a joke. But that's
absolutely.
That's them. I'm telling you, I would just go and protest and do my thing, and then I just kept going. Well, here's what happened. Okay, Aaron. On several occasions, Aaron and the other second gens, a number of them, you guys know who they are, got together with Lou Repetto and, filmed their interactions and said how great he was and what great.
Okay, hold on. I want to, so is this when they were, I just want to be real clear on this, and I'm going to use names if that's okay. Because I feel like the Scientology, a lot of the anti-Scientology people don't use names, so it's really hard to know the details of when things have happened because the names aren't being used. Was this when he was at the Blue Building?
Yeah.
With Louis? Okay.
Yeah.
And so that was, I met Louis that day. We went to breakfast at the Waffle House with Liz and her wife, Liz Gale, Laura, Aaron, Smith-Levin, and Jenna were there. And Jenna was sitting next to me, and Aaron was sitting next to her. And Aaron was rubbing on Jenna's leg underneath the table. And then later on, they went to Blue, and I believe everyone took a group photo there. And that is the time where Aaron has said that he hasn't hung out with Louis Repetto, and Louis Repetto and him were filming together. Is that correct? Do I have that correct?
Yeah, I didn't know anything
From what
about
you
the
know?
breakfast you're talking about. But wait a second. Are you saying that Louis Repetto was at that breakfast?
Yeah, he was. That's when I met Louis Repetto.
And Aaron was at that breakfast?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
why in that video did they act like they just accidentally ran into each other? Is
It's
that
a
all
good
fake?
question. That's a good question, and I will cut in the photos from breakfast, from us having breakfast earlier in that day.
Okay, because I mean, they go, "Oh, hey, what are you doing here? Are you protesting?" No, I was here for work, and I just, I got together with the girls and did some protesting yesterday, and thought I'd stop by today. They acted like they ran into each other by accident.
No, we all went to breakfast before
I can't believe
in the
that.
morning.
I
Yeah, and
can't.
I will. I'll cut those. I'll get those pictures in this. I'll get those pictures in here.
And we should
Liz is
probably do
sending
a
them to me.
clip of that, a clip of their little faked
Yes, yes.
reunion, because they were
Yeah, I
so
will.
happy. They, Aaron
Yeah,
with his arm around him, and oh, Lou and I were together the whole time I was in the Sea Org. Lou was in the Sea Org with me, and
yeah.
oh, it's just
And
so
that
happy to be
video,
united.
that that video, I believe, is gone on Aaron's side, and that was the day he had a rainbow shirt on that day.
Lou
He had
did,
that at breakfast. Yes, I got
yeah.
pictures. I have a picture with him with Liz Ferris with the rainbow shirt on.
Well, Toddy One Skip has the video, so we can use hers.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, if you well, I'll clip it in here so everyone sees right here.
yeah, yeah.
Because it's important. These are important little details of the set of circumstances, really.
Right.
Because Aaron specifically said that he hadn't hung out with Louis or anything, and he forgets about that day. It's very important to the narrative.
It is. Yeah, so that was, I don't remember the date of that one. And so let's get that. And
I'll have that. When I clip it in, I'll put the actual date of that, and
because
then we could, yeah, because that'll be good for the timeline of
I like to
things.
have a clean timeline because I think it helps
Yeah.
people understand what happened. Well, prior to that, no, after that, in April and May, I can't remember how Lou and I started talking, but at any rate, I did a series of 5 interviews with him, 5 one-hour interviews over a period of 5 weeks, and it was April 12th was the first one, and May 12th was the last one. And we talked about everything, about him, about his history and all of that, about his life, about Scientology. And first of all, he smoked a lot of weed while we were filming, because he would like duck down and be smoking, and then before we started he was smoking, and so he said a lot of really weird stuff, and then like he couldn't follow the
Follow through with it because he was
he
high.
couldn't follow the conversation in a
Yeah.
rational way. So he said weird stuff that was probably hard for people to understand, and I got a little frustrated with that. And
So he was driving down to Chicago to
no,
do these interviews.
we did him on StreamYard.
You did them on StreamYard, and are those still up?
I have them, but I took them down.
Okay.
I can't, I had to look at some of them today to get the dates, and
Yeah.
it makes me sick. It really,
Yeah.
it makes me sick to see that. So, eventually, he was flirty, very flirty, and but he was also really sweet, like sweet and mild, very mild mannered seeming, and kind of insecure, and the kind of person that you would think would be harmless, literally, not muscular, just all like concave chest and all that stuff, and just non-threatening. That's what he was, non-threatening. And he seems to have made a real art of this, of being non-threatening, because this is how he groomed everybody that we later found out he violated. And he did the same with me, but I didn't know that's what was happening. I had no idea. He introduced me to his girlfriend on, StreamYard in the waiting room or whatever it is, and to his girlfriend's young daughter, who was like 12 years old or 13 at the time. And the daughter there was something about, she's so miserable. She just was really miserable. And it really affected me. And I just got the feeling that something was wrong. And
this was captured. This was captured on the Zoom.
No, it's we were on StreamYard, and this was like before we went on.
You were in the studio and not live.
Yeah. But I should have taped all that stuff. I could have recorded it, and I didn't.
Yeah. And can I throw something in there real quick?
Sure.
Because I'm just throwing it out there, like the value of seeing Louis, how he was in grooming and everything, maybe reconsider possibly putting that out for everyone to see, because I think that's a valuable thing for people to kind of see the manipulation of who he was. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying to do anything or anything, but I know it's tough for everybody, but it could be valuable to somebody to understand some of those patterns. And so that's just a thought I was having. It could be a bad thought.
Well, no, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I'll think about it. My concern always has been for the victims, the other victims, and my close friend who was sexually assaulted by him. And, but I didn't know that at the time. But this is what happened. She was watching one of my shows with him. I think it was the last one. And she said a comment, and it was, "Oh, Shannon," with like a sad face. And I thought, oh, well, what'd I do? I must have said something stupid, or, I did something. And it was like a crying face. And so after we were done, I called her and I was like, what's going on? Now, she was one of the people that stayed with me for the opening, for the Ideal Org. She doesn't even live in the state. She came all the way up to protest the Ideal Org opening. And this is what makes me so angry. In Chicago, and has done that more than once, and has no prior contact with Scientology at all. Doesn't have family in it, wasn't ever in it herself, but was so moved by the stories she heard on YouTube that she did a lot to, sacrificed a lot to protest them. And when nobody else was protesting in St. Louis, she was at that org protesting. And she was the one that put that sad face on during the Repetto interview, the last one. And so That would have been on May 12th. And so I called her later that day after I got everything I had to do done. And I said, what's going on? And she said, oh, I just have to ask you something. And I'm sorry, but I just need to know. And she was crying. And she said, has Lou ever done anything to you? Or, and I knew right away what she was talking about, because between the fourth and fifth episodes of my interviews, which would have been, between May 3rd and 12th, he sent me a picture of himself masturbating. He was naked, and under a blanket, he had his hand, and it's clear what he was doing, right? He was masturbating, and he wrote, I was just thinking about you and hoping you were having a good day. I am listening to videos and watching videos and listening to music or something like that. He had headphones on. There was no computer anywhere in sight. And it's him, it's his face, it's his naked body, to, his hips, I guess, and then a blanket over his hand that is sticking up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he's clearly masturbating. And when I got that, I thought, what a fucking idiot. Like, I was on a walk with a friend, my friend Lisa, and I were walking around, and we were in the park, and I said, oh my God, look what I just got from this guy I'm interviewing. And I showed her the picture, and we both just burst out laughing. He looked so stupid. And I thought, okay, this is a one-off, right? Because he was being so flirty.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this idiot, here's another guy from Scientology that, he's sweet and everything, but he doesn't know how to act in the real world. And he's doing, and he thinks that this is going to be like romantic. And so I wrote him an email, and I said, don't ever do that again. I said, you found yourself with respect because you were the victim of a cult. And you might bring that all down on your head for what? If somebody finds out that you sent me that picture, for what? I said, you jeopardize the movement and your own self-respect for something so stupid. And I said, don't ever do that again. And he said something like, understood. And then about a week later, he sent me another email that said, I'm going to can I send you a paragraph, and it will be 2D flowing? And I said, send it to your girlfriend. And that was it. That's what happened. So I told my friend, I have to be really careful not to say her name because I've accidentally done that more than once. And it's really important that I not do it again. Because, well, for a lot of reasons, but legal mostly. So she said, well, I've been really having some problems with him. And I said, what's going on? And she said, he's constantly sending me pornographic videos of him and his girlfriend. And he writes the most disgusting things to me, and he calls me 20 times a day. And he, I'm having a lot of problems getting him to stop. I've blocked him everywhere. He keeps changing his name, and he has all these sock accounts. So he keeps getting through to me. He's gotten through to me on Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook. She said I got a new phone and a new phone number. And I just can't get him to stop. And I said, you have to call the police then. And she was like, no, I can't do that. I can't call the police. And I thought, that's weird. I thought, well, okay, so he flirted with her and he did a lot more to her, in terms of the material that he gave her. And I'm sorry, I'm really cold right now and I'm starting to shiver. Can you tell?
Yeah. You turn on that heater. I think that sound cancellation was the issue.
Okay. So anyway, we can cut this out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God, it's so cold. Oh, that's better. I think the dog is cold too.
We don't need you freezing to death for this interview.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
So that's what she told me, and that's all she told me. And it wasn't until then someone else came forward and said that something happened to her. And then on June 20th, my friend told me that he had raped her, that he had sexually assaulted her. And I was so furious, I can't even tell you. And all these people started coming out and saying, me too, me too, me too, He sent me these weird pictures and these weird, it was so gross. And I ended up, all that stuff had to go through me to Pearl. And I've seen a lot of it, but once you've seen a couple, you don't need to see anymore. And it was, and it was so nasty. I mean, okay, so it's photographs of him ejaculating, having sex with his girlfriend. His girlfriend was in a sex swing and he's eating her out in the sex swing. He's got her on his lap and he's smacking her ass really hard and staring at the camera in the creepiest goddamn way. And he's each thing that he sent, he wrote something to, oh, I masturbated in front of this person today. And it was another streamer. Another streamer. Mm-hmm. I masturbated in front of this streamer today thinking about your ass. And then he started taking pictures of all of the women that were protesting in Scientology while they were protesting, of their breasts and their crotches and their butts. And he would say, you would look good in these shorts, and send them pictures of themselves and dukes or a bikini or wear this. He actually said these things. Wear this next time you come to protest. He also did things like money was donated directly to them when they were out protesting by sympathetic members of the public, and he kept all that money. None of them ever saw it again. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Now, how did he keep? They were sending it to him?
Well, he was treated as the boss because he was the second gen there. Okay, and
in St. Louis,
he was Aaron's friend, and he was Nora's friend, and Liz Gale's friend, and all the people that he had been filmed with. And my friend that was sexually assaulted by Lou Repetto sent Aaron super chat the day of the Chicago Ideal Org opening, when Aaron was covering it live, and I talked to him and other people did too. That day, at the end of that show, Aaron answered his super chat questions, and my friend had sent him a question, which was, I am actually from St. Louis, and I would really like to find somebody to protest with. Do you know anyone there? And Aaron's answer was, I know someone in St. Louis. Let me think. Louis Repetto. Yeah, if you're in St. Louis, get in touch with Louis Repetto. And that's Louis's assault victim that Aaron told directly to get in touch with Lou Repetto. Aaron knows this. I confronted him with this. Aaron's quite aware of all of this.
And you go on.
No, you.
Sorry. And so you confronted him after all this.
Right.
Right.
So June 20th, I found out what happened to my friend, and I went on. I sent Aaron. Okay. The victims that we knew of got together on a Zoom call, and we talked to support one another, to just be there for each other, and so that everybody knew they weren't alone. Every single person thought they were the only one. Every single one thought they were the only one, and we wanted to decide as a group, what to do about it, and in the immediate, so that other people weren't being hurt, because we had just seen that Crazy Love person. She had made some like songs to sing, protest songs, and she had a live where she was saying the songs or something, and Lou was in the chat, and Lou was saying to her, couldn't you film yourself while you're doing that? We'd like to watch you while you do that. And my friend, who was his assault victim, caught this and said, Shannon, we got to do something. And so we discussed that in the Zoom chat, and we all decided that we were going to do it on our terms. No one was going to tell us who we would do it with, how we would do it. We didn't care. At that time, there was so much deference given to second and third gens. Those people were untouchable. They had a corner on suffering, and nobody else suffered like they suffered. And you were not allowed to question them in any way. I will never fall into that trap as long as I live again, and I don't think any of us will again. But we did.
I hate that word second gen. I hate never in. It like creates. It's a caste system within the anti-Scientology community.
That's right. And you could feel it. I mean, they let you know.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things Aaron screamed at me. So, when you call, I think I sent a text message first to the person that's supposed to be this sort of, the king of the anti-Scientologist protesters or whatever.
Yeah.
He's not a protester. Anti-Scientologist YouTube famous people. And you ask for direction and advice, you expect, call me crazy, but I expected sympathy and some understanding, some sorrow, maybe even some contrition. What I got was, I sent him a text message saying, we've written a letter. A lot of people in our community have been abused sexually by Lou Repetto. In my state, it's called sexual abuse. When someone sends pornographic material to someone else and it's not solicited. So even one time, it's called sexual abuse. And there have also been rapes. And now we know that there have been multiple rapes. And we have written a letter about how we think it should be handled, how that the community needs to be warned. And we think it's really important. And because you are the biggest channel, I'd like to talk to you about it. He calls me screaming at the top of his voice, absolutely screaming. Why are you calling me about this shit? You think this shit is my fault? He's like, everybody fucking knows there's something wrong with Lou Repetto. Why would you have Lou Repetto on your channel? Everybody knows. I said, well, guess what, Aaron? There are at least, as of today, 9 people that didn't know and were abused by him. And some were raped. And frankly, you introduced one of the sexual assault victims to him. Oh my God. He was like, I don't give a fuck, and my audience doesn't fucking care about Lou Repetto and your rape victim friends, and we don't give a shit about any of that. Why should I get involved in something like that? And who do you think you are, calling me and asking me this stuff? And I said, you know what? You are the asshole that everyone says you are, so fuck you, Aaron. And I went to hang up the phone, and he goes, oh, no, like that. Like I could hear him as I'm putting my phone down. And I put the phone up to my ear, and he realized that I was going to go back to the victims and tell them exactly what happened. And it was going to get out that Aaron Smith Levin doesn't give a shit or a fuck about members of his fan club. We were all members of his fan club before we ever went out and protested Scientology. And he did not give a shit, and neither did his audience. And you know, I've heard from a lot of them since, and they did give a shit. Guess what? They do.
Well, and a lot of Aaron's fame has come off of the Danny Masterson trial and the rape victims of the Jane Does. So how could his audience not be concerned about SA? Like that, none of that makes any sense.
None. I was so shocked. I've never been talked to that way. I have actually had other lawyers raise their voice. I've had fights with my ex-husband. You know, I have never been spoken to that way. I was shocked. And he said, Shannon, I have to tell you this, and this has to stay between you and I. I don't honor that. I don't honor that. I'm not a secret keeper. I'm not a strategic sneak. You know, that's not me. I will tell you what's up, and you'll know that it's true. And if you don't like it, then good. You know, that's okay with me. But you'll know the truth. And he said, you know, he said at that time, he told me 7 or 8 months ago, I got a phone call from someone. No, he said, I got an email from someone who was in the Sea Org, and she didn't tell me what her name was, but she told me that she escaped when Lou Repetto did, and he raped her. And I talked to her and asked her questions, and I 1000% believed that she was telling me the truth. So, Shannon, I know you guys are telling the truth. I believe you, and I believe everyone you're talking about is telling the truth. Everybody knows about him. And I said, everybody does not know, Aaron. And he said, but I told everybody. I said, who did you tell? And he said, everybody. I said, who's everybody? He said, you know, like us, streamers. And I said, if you had told me, I never would have put him on my channel. If you'd told me, I never would have spoken to him. I certainly wouldn't have been on camera hugging him like he's a long lost brother. No, you didn't tell everybody. And he said, well, you don't socialize. I told the ones that socialize. And I said, like who? And he said, all of them. I told all of them. And he would not name names. So he started crying. He said, you know, Sea Org members just don't make up things like that, like the rest of us do. You know, the thing that a lot of people seem to not understand or miss is that it doesn't do you any good to make up stories about being sexually assaulted, sexually abused, raped. There's no good comes of it for the victim, okay? You don't make any money. Normally, you don't even report it. But when you do, the police don't give a shit. Aaron Smith Levin certainly doesn't give a shit. And even when the rapist is prosecuted, it's very, very rare that they're convicted. And the statistics are mind-blowing. And to think that someone would make that up for what? Oh, I know. Farrell Cheryl said, I did it for clicks.
She said that?
Yeah, I did it for clicks. She said that. The amount of hatred. So Aaron decided, I think. So I told Aaron, he said, I'm not going to help you. I'm telling you right now, I'm not helping you. And I said, well, okay, Aaron, I'm going to go to my friends, these victims, and I'm going to pass along your empathetic, expression of sorrow about their pain and trauma. And he said, don't you dare. He goes, now he's like, Mr. Evil again. He goes, I will have a Liz Ferris read a letter from me about you. And I said, okay, well, do your worst. And right away, okay, so we talked on the phone for over an hour. This miserable conversation went on for over an hour, where the first 45 minutes he screamed at me, and then he cried for about 10 minutes about how sad it is that Sea Org members don't make up things like rape. Also, he told me that he knew that there were other victims from the Sea Org, including a woman who Lou forced her to give him a blowjob in exchange for passing a course that she was going to have to be on rice and beans or something for if she didn't pass it.
Did I lose you? You there? I lost her. Yeah. I'm waiting. It's going really well. Like it's she's so detail orientated. Of course. Like you need distinct facts for this. Yeah, and I mean and she's so credible just with her background, you know, and I think that's super important in all this is, you know, having that information out in the world. Yeah, because I didn't know any of that. And knowing that, it makes her testimony so much more credible. Yeah. You know, that's why they do that in court. They ask those questions. The cop tells you all of his certifications and everything before they testify. Have you even gotten to the deep part? We're in it. We're in. She just talked about the girl being raped in St. Louis, and she's talking about the details of Aaron's conversation on the phone. So I think I'm gonna end. I've never done this. Pause recording, cancel recording, start recording. Oh man, none of the above. I don't know what happened to her. I don't want to end it. I emailed her. I don't know if her phone died. I'm just gonna wait. For an internet brain fart. Yeah. Yeah, it's not on this end. That's good. Starlink works pretty well for satellite internet. Is this Starlink? Yes. I'm just gonna wait for it to come back. I am tired though, I'll tell you that. Yeah, I'm just getting kind of tired, and because I got tired, I started to get a little bit chilly, so I went upstairs and kind of huddled up. Yeah, this is not a good interview for Aaron. That's for fuck sure. Aaron needs to go away. He's the worst. At first, I thought she was pulling out, but it's just, I guess, just happening. Yeah, yeah, and she hasn't done anything for the last 6, 8 months. I'm so glad that she let me interview her after me like doubting the whole story. Me too. You know, that's a success story. I mean, I didn't see it so much as doubt as much as you were like, what are the accusations? But yeah, I really did, but it was taken. I didn't realize how bad it would be taken, and it was taken really bad. Yeah. And it was used in the dead agenting of me as one of the reasons why to not like me or whatnot. So dumb. It's so dumb, and the story needs to come out. I mean, it's important, you know. And I got the pictures of going to breakfast. Yeah, I'm gonna go through Toddy's stuff and watch Toddy's stuff and clip out.
I've watched it better stuff.
I haven't watched the whole Louis Repetto thing, but I'm gonna sit through and watch it all and learn every detail. So I get the details in this.
I don't think she's perfect.
No, nobody is.
Nobody is, and she does have some good information. Like, I agree with Nora at being pissed at Mike Rinder after he died. Like, Toddy hated that.
That Nora was angry,
Yeah, I was angry when Rinder died without
releasing the info.
You know, yeah, doing something useful.
Yep, I can see that.
Toddy got super butthurt and saying you're like being rude to the dead kind of thing, and it's like he was a child trafficker.
Yeah, no, you like just the everybody dies, and
If they did something heinous, that's not an excuse.
yeah, no, you don't get a pass once you die, even for the survivors, and that's why it's so important to keep a good legacy and have a good name.
Yep.
You know, because of that type of situation.
People like Tiny should hope they get forgotten by history because he does not want to be remembered by history.
Where'd you go, Shannon?
Another question: do you think the sound was good? It was just soft from your speaker, or is it going to be better?
Yes, I think there's something wrong with my speaker
Oh, okay.
because I can't do a mic on here,
Oh,
and yeah,
maybe a reboot.
yeah, and so I'll eventually. I'm waiting for my other two phones to be returned to me because they're all paid off, and I'll have another phone, but I'll probably do an insurance claim on this one and just get a new phone because I just beat them up because they're just,
Sure.
you know, they get all sorts of things happen.
You tweakers run off with you have.
Yeah. I can't wait to call Street Starving Marvin.
What? You're gonna call him Starving Marvin?
Have you seen the picture of Starving Marvin?
Yeah.
He looks just like Starving Marvin.
Okay.
I'm not. That might be construed as racist.
I guarantee you it will be, but it is pretty funny.
Maybe I shouldn't do that.
I guarantee you that will be how it is weaponized.
All right, I'm just gonna end it and then save it, and then
Comes back, so be it.
yeah.
You can splice them together.